Good afternoon to all that can attend the live broadcast of Ask The SCSA for June 18th, 2020, and to those watching our recorded version. We broadcast live via Zoom, and that link is found on the SCSA website under the News tab. Then click on the Events tab. The links for our Tuesday and Thursday webinars can be found there. We're also streaming live on Facebook, and the 1-hour webinar is added to our YouTube channel for viewing later on. Our webinars moving forward will be held at noon for the convenience of those that wish to catch the live version. Today we have a very special guest that has made time to join us. Cary Serviss is presenting for us from Saskatchewan Stars Air Ambulance. Just a little bit of background about Cary. Over the past 26 years, Cary has worked as a paramedic in Melfort, Regina, Moose Jaw, North Battleford, and Saskatoon. In addition, he's worked with the Saskatoon Police Service as a tactical paramedic for over 10 years and in the Saskatoon Royal University Hospital emergency alongside RNs and physicians in the resuscitation areas. In 2014, he began working with Stars Air Ambulance in Saskatoon as a critical care paramedic. In 2002, Cary began his medevac career with Saskatchewan Air Ambulance and has been in the most remote communities, providing the highest level of care as a critical care paramedic. To add to his resume, he also teaches new paramedics at the advanced level with a new program in Saskatoon called the MediV Education Program. Cary's current role with STARS is a community education leader for Central and Northern Saskatchewan, as well as a critical care flight paramedic. So during my quest to learn more about a presenter and STARS, I came across a quote from Cary that I'd like to share. And it goes like this: "The changes that I have experienced throughout my career are from the public perception of our profession to the ability to use life-saving medications, the advancement in technology and ventilators, and the ability to do blood transfusions in the back of a helicopter. The care we deliver today resembles the type you'd find in an emergency room." The construction industry's projects in Saskatchewan a lot of times are in remote locations that if something serious were to happen, a first aid kit or a local medical clinic, if even in proximity and open, has limited resources and capabilities. If there's no access to advanced care, this most definitely could reflect on the overall outcome of an injured worker. I am personally excited to learn more about the STARS program and how a company may register their construction site into the STARS system so that dispatch could be swift and accurate in the event of a medical emergency. After Cary's presentation, time permitting, we'll have a chance to ask some questions. Please use the Q&A feature on Zoom, or if you're watching on Facebook Live, please type your questions in the comments, and we have someone feeding those questions to the Q&A here on Zoom. So I'd like to take this time to welcome Cary. Thanks for joining us today, and I'll turn things over to you.
Great. Hi. Well, thank you very much for the introduction. That was wonderful. I'm very pleased to be asked to share my area of expertise and what I am involved with on a day-to-day basis. And I think it's a crucial aspect for just the citizens of Saskatchewan, to everyone working in this province. I've been in many situations where we were able to help out and save some lives. So my area of expertise is working in that critical care environment out of the back of the helicopter. And like you and I have spoken about, just since October, I've transitioned into this role in which I do a bit of the education around the province. And part of that is public relations and just general knowledge. STARS has been in Saskatchewan for only about 7 years now. So people of the province are well aware of it, I'm finding, but people don't know any details specifics. So when I get these opportunities to speak about it, I jump at it, and it's great. I enjoy it quite a bit. So I'll just get started with my presentation. All right. Mike, you can see this to start with, can you?
Yeah, I can see it very well, Cary.
Okay, perfect. So we're going to talk about STARS area. It's the critical care coverage for all communities of Saskatchewan. We're going to speak a little bit about the history and the current practice, how to access STARS, some of the education that most people are completely unaware of. In fact, you know, I've been working as a paramedic in this for 26 years, and didn't start with STARS when it first came here. And I was also unaware of how robust their education is and what they do for communities, just an education aspect alone. So I'll touch on that, and some of the landing zone criteria and how does STARS stay safe. So a little bit of quick history. STARS actually started back in 1985 in Calgary, and it was with a physician that had done some military work and come back to Canada and was working out of Calgary as a physician, and realized he was coming across cases in which people may have survived. In fact, he was certain that people would have survived had there been a medevac helicopter service. Alberta has quite a population difference from Saskatchewan, so it makes a lot of sense, and the mountains and the foothills that they have to go down with the roadway. So this was born out of something that a physician saw. There was a helicopter pilot. All started with volunteers. A nurse and paramedic volunteered on their days off to do shifts out of this helicopter. And it wasn't until not too long ago that it's maybe been about, I think it's been actually about less than 20 years, people actually started getting paid per hour to do their job at STARS. So a lot of fundraising. It's a non-for-profit service for Western Canada still. And we cover the 3 provinces, so Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, with 6 different bases. So you can see on the left, that's the first machine that was used back in '85. And to date, currently out of Saskatoon are running this new H145, which I'll give some more details later on that machine. Some stats, so averaging, you know, shy of 3,000 trips annually. In Saskatchewan, I think these are the 2019 or 2018 stats, I'm not sure, but that's 812 trips in Saskatchewan, average 8 a day for all the bases, and a total 42,000 since '85. So it's pretty impressive. So how to access, people always wonder, well, how through the 911 system, or how does it work? So what I typically tell people when we're talking about the STARS is activated, and we are involved in 3 different aspects really. The 911 system is prompted certain criteria that they will bulk calls over to STARS. So anyone calling 911, if it fits a certain type of profile, that call could be a rollover, it could be a various number of other things, and that's just coming up that highlights those. So that's through the 911. We do intra-facility calls, and to date, we're kind of at a 50-50. This year, we do a lot more calls. Of course, people are out and about, and there's more recreation happening outside now. So our scene calls kind of bump up, and we're doing more scene calls than the intra-facilities. But I think if you look at what we do over the year, it's pretty even. Our intra-facilities might be from a hospital to Saskatoon, or Yorkton into Regina, that type of thing. And we do search and rescues too. We have been asked on occasion, I've been involved in a number of them, where, you know, we were able to be the first on scene because local fire departments, RCMP, and ambulance were looking for an individual that has left the highway. They were able to call on a cell phone, and 911 was able to triangulate the last known area of that cell phone, but he was unable to be found. So on that specific call, we launched to kind of do a search for a vehicle. And of course, a little bit of altitude of 1,500 feet, you can see a lot more than from level. So we were able to help them out, and that specific patient actually survived pretty serious illness that caused him to leave the highway and go through a ditch, barbed wire fence through the field, and ended up in a slough. And that's why they couldn't see a vehicle from the roadways. That patient was able to be discharged from hospital 3 weeks later, actually. So that was a good story on that one. They're not always positive stories. At least we're able to help out. The 800 numbers direct the link center. Most people don't know this, that all 6 bases are dispatched, the 6 helicopter bases. So you've got Calgary, Edmonton, and Grand Prairie. You've got Saskatoon, Regina, and you've got Winnipeg. All those helicopters are dispatched out of Calgary. That's the main base. That link center is they're designed to link the appropriate people to the appropriate people, whether it's a physician calling to start a consult or an interfacility transport, whether it's a helicopter need, a fixed wing airplane, or ambulance to transport somebody. The link center is designed to link physicians, paramedics, nursing from clinics, all of these people together, and 911 as well. So this sometimes takes me a few seconds to get this to play, but it's helpful for people to understand kind of what link center is involved with, if you bear with me for a moment.
Currently she's intubated, and we've got her sedated on our ventilator. Her current vitals are a heart rate of 1.
Oh, hey Lindsay, it's John from Stars Ambulance. How are you doing today?
Blood pressure of 101/70.
Lindsay, just want to bring you into a call.
Okay, let me explain what you just saw in that opening shot there. It was actually a screen recording from the editing app we used to put together a training video shot a little while ago here in the Stars Emergency Link Center.
Stars Emergency Link Center, this is John. Who am I speaking with?
Hi John, it's Amy calling from the account.
Oh, hi Amy, what do you have first?
I wanted to show you a bit of it because I think it's a good example of what these people here actually do. The way they make sense of multiple calls all at once. The Stars Emergency Link Center is a lot more than just a place to dispatch helicopters.
Dr. Walker, you have the transport physician Dr. Hatch on the line. Go ahead.
Hello, Dr. Hatch?
Hi, Dr. Walker, what can you do?
So we don't employ dispatchers here, we employ emergency communications specialists because we have to link a plethora of people into various calls at different times. So that might include helicopters, ground ambulances, hospitals, doctors, physicians, nurses, air traffic control, landing zones, fire, dispatchers, 911, RCMP, whoever. And that means the helicopter can go out of the door, straight to the patient, the hospitals receive the patient, everybody knows what's going on.
Take a look at this top bar. That's John's voice, constant presence throughout the whole 6.5-minute call, with everybody else kind of scattered throughout. Here's the original caller, the acute care access line, requesting transfer for a patient between hospitals. The STARS transport physician is brought in, and he's briefed on the situation with the patient. Soon, he's talking to the doctor from the hospital that wants to send the patient. Over here, our pilots are notified. They start checking to see if it's safe to fly to the location. Down here, the provincial fixed-wing ambulance is looped into the call. Our air medical crew, paramedics, nurses, they're looped into the call with the doctors. All of those voices are heard all at once inside the headset of somebody manning this desk. How do they do it?
It's almost like being in an orchestra, and you know the piece you have to play, but also you're aware of everybody else's part. So when you have to come to speak, you anticipate that time, you're ready for it, but you're also listening to everybody else. Thanks so much, 9, standing by weather check, and be advised it's on 137.
So there's something else that I want to show you. I want to show you these doors to the STARS Emergency Link Center. Check out the slogan on the doors. It's about the patient.
And it is all about the patient for us. We have 3 things that we like to keep in the background of our minds. So time, we want to save time, do things as efficiently as possible. Time is of the essence for us. Tools, people don't think often as a map of a tool. That's a huge tool for us. Logistics, radios, formative spreadsheets that works. And then talent, an enormous amount of talent out there. We can bring physicians, paramedics, helicopters, whoever we need to on the phone and get that talent to patients' cases.
So there you go. It's an incredible group of people all working together for the good of the patient. If you want to learn more about the STARS Emergency Link Center, check out this link. And until next time, thanks for watching.
Great. That is a quick snippet of how the Link Center works. And I'm just going to move on to, as I mentioned before, some of the 911 criteria to notify STARS. This is a snapshot of some highlighted areas that 911 should be obligated to pass on to our Link Center. And then if you're the Saskatoon base, we would get radio tones and we would hear about a specific call. I have Annax starred there because that's new. We actually were missing a couple calls because it all depends on a call maker to 911 and a call taker from 911 processes a call. And we were able to look back retrospectively and see that we were entering into calls quite a bit late. There was an elderly gentleman that was pushed up against the corral in the out at a farm setting. He had some rib fractures, punctured anatomy, and internal blood loss. And we found out about this quite a bit late into the call, and we realized that this was logged as an animal attack in the 911 system, so we had to rectify that. So now we were hearing about those more timely. A little bit about the education. STARS puts a significant amount of effort and funding that we get provinces into education. Kind of three highlighted areas I have here: the mobile education program. You see that motorhome that's been converted into basically a simulation room, and free of charge. We'll set up in advance, months in advance. Training. You know, I've been out to Melfort Hospital, and the physicians and nurses come out, and we run scenario after scenario of maybe something they want to get beefed up on, and they don't have to leave the community. It's physician led a lot of the information from physicians that we work closely with at STARS, and then it's vetted by our paramedics and nurses, and we roll usually two of us in that operation, and we'll run simulation for communities. So we've had a lot of positive feedback on that. Especially, you know, now that COVID is hitting. That bus has been parked several months, of course, but usually it runs year round. The STAR Academy is the program that we would attend if you get hired on by STARS as a nurse or paramedic or a physician, and they put you through a very rigid design course to test your knowledge and build up and give you the best information, latest researched info that we can provide for our people. And then the operation outreach. So you can see the firefighter here and the helicopter to the right of the screen there. That'd be the outreach. So that's kind of my role now since October, is going out to fire departments, interacting with them and anyone else in their communities, setting up and talking about landing zone preparation and what kind of hazards our pilots might be looking for, and ways to mitigate issues there, so that we will ultimately do the safest job that we can do. So I come out and I just have a list of communities that I maybe haven't been to for a long time or haven't been to yet, and try and reach everybody. So I know with this group, it's pretty, it'd be a pretty hot topic as far as site registration. So STARS has this program in which you can register your site. So I was able to borrow this slide from one of our other people at work here that that goes and deals with site registration. I haven't done that. So then the information I can add here is that, there's a lot of sites in Alberta that have been doing this for a long time. Saskatchewan is starting to pick up with this. There's a lot of aspects to this registration, to be honest, that I didn't know just until recently. But to register a site, you can see there in the middle, it's a 1-888-888-4567, or the email address below. That's industry@stars.ca. So, a little bit about this. We were talking this morning in a meeting about site registration, and it sounds as though it's $150 a year, which is minimal to register your site. Every site gets a number, and if somebody were to call in and give that, I don't know if it's 4 or 6-digit number, they were to give that number, the STARS Link Center would have the GPS coordinates and the road directions for that site. Then they're also connected. They've also done the background work and looked into seeing, well, who's available by ground? Is there another site nearby that maybe there's a primary care paramedic working at? Maybe there's an advanced care paramedic service nearby. What are the fire responding complements around that site at those GPS locations? So there's a lot of background work that goes into registering a site and knowing the resources. So this definitely doesn't replace the 911 system. If there is an emergency, everyone is encouraged to call 911. But registering a site gives you an extreme amount of extra resource at the tip of your fingers and location identified. So we can send a helicopter direct to a GPS location or directions too. So this is helpful. There's a lot. I know this is a busy slide. There's a lot of information on there, but this is something that maybe Mike or somebody there can post these links for the registration number and address there. This is just a map, kind of give you an overview of Western Canada here of where some of these site registration sites are. They're kind of clustered in areas. Of course, oil industry is a big one for that. Mining, a little bit of oil for Saskatchewan, but of course, there's remote construction communities that the nearest responding ambulance service might be 45 minutes away, and it's a basic provider perhaps. Saskatchewan has a lot of basic support. So that's the primary care paramedic. You go from the primary care to the intermediate advanced, and then the critical care is where we're at when we come out in the helicopter. So there's a lot of private owned ambulance services in Saskatchewan still that are just BLS, primary care paramedic providers. They might not even be in town. They might be doing an intra-facility to Regina or Saskatoon. It might be a long wait. So that's where we can help out with the helicopter for sure. Here's a snapshot of what it looks like in the back of that motorhome, that mobile education program that we run out. That was just something that's on hold right now, but the communities really have valued this program and appreciate it. So hopefully we can continue with that at some point. A little snapshot of maybe, most people would never seen the back of that helicopter and hope you don't need to. But here's the equipment I like to highlight. On the left photo with the outside of that helicopter, you can see our red case. That's our laryngoscope. So in the event that somebody needs to be intubated, need to take control of their airway. This is the gold standard in the industry as far as airway management these days. So not only can I see on this screen going down in the airway while I try to intubate somebody, but I can hit on the handle of my laryngoscope a red button and it records the whole event. So what STARS does very nicely is we input these recordings into our continuing education. So I might record an airway that isn't anticipated to be difficult, but ends up being difficult because of a burned airway, or there's swelling because of a medical reason. And then it gets a little complicated and you have to troubleshoot how to get around these issues. And input that video into a simulation that we run every month. Every month we have a room at our hangar at the airport, and it's physician led, and we run case scenarios, and they're very challenging cases. And so of course we're going to difficult airways. So that's on the spot. You have to troubleshoot and work around it. The blood box, or the black box, is one of 2 coolers that we carry at Stars. There's 2 units of O negative, so that's the universal donor there. Anyone can receive O negative, and for any reason, for blood, whether it's trauma or an internal bleed because of a medical reason, we have used it several times, and it was Stars that we can do better for our patients. Why can we not invent something and take it out to the patients? So this wasn't happening anywhere in North America. Came up with this roughly about 6 years ago. One of our medics out of Regina said, there's no reason why we can't do this. Let's figure it out. So he had a team figure it out. Every single Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, whether it's a stat holiday or not, these 2 units of blood go back to the blood in Regina and Saskatoon, and we get 2 new units. If this is untampered with, and there's markers inside each cooler that determine that it stayed at a certain temperature the entire time it was away from the blood bank, this blood actually goes back into circulation and it's used. So to date, to my knowledge, since we've started, we have not lost or wasted any blood at all. So that's a good indicator that we're using it, and it's needed because we've used it several times. The ventilator there is next. That was a Telemiracle fundraiser. We were given some funds from a Telemiracle program one to help support our need for new ventilation equipment. Anybody that's, whether it's CPAP, BiPAP, or a tube in the airway, we can connect them up to these machines. They're about a $50,000 touch is per ventilator. There's one on every helicopter, so they add up. Cardiac monitors next to it, and then we have some other equipment that I won't get into right now. Crossing the screen on the other side, you can see this is one of our critical care nurses out of the Winnipeg base. She's just showing off one of the ultrasounds. So this is the first sound machine we've. So we do a lot of training and education, and like a lot of things, some of the Stars educators were sitting around and wondering, what's the next latest best thing we can try to get into? So that was the ultrasound. So it was actually utilized first here in the Saskatoon base, which was nice. We had one of our flight nurses just trained up on it. The expensive part of the ultrasound, actually doing the training, doing all the scans. That's more of the cost than buying an ultrasound machine. But we've had several cases out of the Saskatoon base now where we were transporting a patient trauma center, which is a university hospital in Saskatoon, or the general hospital for Regina, but we were going to RUH, and we did an in-flight ultrasound and determined that the reason that this car accident occurred was likely because of the ruptured aortic aneurysm. This information was able to be sent to our transport physician. We're able to contact day and night, 24/7. And the decision was made that this patient likely would never survive the rest of this trip. But if we wanted to, we could reroute this patient to the St. Paul's Hospital because they're set up for vascular surgery right then and there. So we did that with that patient. That patient was discharged from that hospital. So that was we got a letter from that vascular surgeon saying that, you know, normally she doesn't get to see these patients because they don't make it to the hospital. But that was another life saved. That new equipment that we're able to use from donations. So that's wonderful for us to be able to have like that. Stars is known for being very safe, and we utilize a team mentality. We are partly required by Transport Canada to have some sort of system in place. We have a a safety environment to use this crew resource management. Annually, we have to do a day of training, and it's all about the team get together. How is the team going to work in any event to make sure that we're as safe as we can be? So it's great to know that, you know, we're doing everything that we can to be safe. This is a video that I play to a lot of departments, and it kind of highlights some of the stars training stuff with the fire departments around the province.
The STARS helicopter landing zone is a clear, level, secured area near an accident scene where a STARS helicopter can land safely to transport patients. When properly set up and operated, it allows the attending ground emergency response team and the STARS air medical crew to work together efficiently and safely to load the patient for transport. In the following video, you will learn how to prepare for STARS arrival, helicopter departure, various hazards and special situations, what crash rescue procedures you are required to know. This video will help you to safely set up the landing zone for the AW139 or the smaller BK117 helicopter. The first step is to designate a landing zone officer who is responsible for setting up and safely running the STARS landing zone. The landing zone officer may enlist a second person, a marshaller, to help with the landing zone duties. The landing zone, however, can be set up and operated effectively by the landing zone officer alone. The officer is usually one of the on-scene team members of the attending fire department, EMS, RCMP, municipal police, or park wardens. Fire department staff are typically best equipped to take on the role of the landing zone officer. But a STARS helicopter landing zone can be run by any person trained to do so. The selected person in any case must be given direct radio contact to the STARS helicopter crew. In the next step, to prepare for the helicopter arrival, the landing zone officer should put on personal protective equipment, such as a helmet, hearing protection, safety glasses, and a face shield. A reflective vest is recommended, particularly on night landings. Prior to STARS arrival, you will need to accomplish a few important tasks. These include selecting a site that is safe and functional, setting up the site for the helicopter arrival, establishing radio contact with the incoming crew. A properly set up and operated landing zone creates smooth teamwork between the ground crew and the air crew, which is ultimately the key element to any successful and safe mission. Once STARS is en route, the landing zone officer must locate a clear area for the helicopter that is accessible to, but safely away from the incident scene. A minimum distance of 120 feet from the accident scene is recommended. The landing zone should be downwind of the incident scene so the STARS helicopter avoids flying over the scene on approach. A landing zone located downwind also keeps rotor wash and exhaust fumes away from the emergency responders once the helicopter is safely on the ground. The AW139 will have much stronger downwash wind than the BK117. The STARS pilot will always land into the wind in strong wind conditions. The landing zone should be away from high obstacles such as street signs, vehicles, towers, poles, power lines, and trees with a reasonable approach by air. Choose an area that is as flat as possible. The landing zone should be set up as soon as possible after the site has been selected. Setup is simple. Ensure the site is a minimum of 36 paces, 36 meters, or 120 feet from the accident site, forming a 36 pace by 36 pace, or 120 feet by 120 feet square.
Rick, I'll get you to set up the landing zone over on that.
Mark out the corners of the landing zone with LED beacons or highly visible pylons. Remove any equipment, material, or loose debris from the immediate area. The helicopter generates downwash wind speeds in excess of 100 kilometers per hour, capable of causing large materials to become airborne. If the area is dusty, wet it down as soon as possible to improve the pilot's visibility on approach and to protect the ground personnel and the helicopter. One of the key components to the mission's success and what often causes the greatest delays on scene is radio communication. The STARS aircraft has several programmed radio frequencies. Ensure that you have communicated to your local dispatch the frequency that you will monitor for communication with the STARS crew.
STARS 2, Cochrane ground.
Cochrane, we are 5 minutes from your location.
The landing zone officer should brief the aircrew as soon as radio contact is established with the STARS helicopter. Tell the crew the location of the landing zone, referencing something easily viewed from above, such as an intersection or the accident itself. Inform the crew whether the ground is level or sloping, the type of surface they are landing on, if there is dust, loose snow, rocks, bushes, or stumps present on the landing zone. Communicate local wind conditions, the location of any nearby hazards such as power lines or road signs, and the existence of any other unique conditions such as smoke or hazardous gas release. Use north, south, east, or west to reference the location of the landing zone and hazards. Always remember that the pilot will approach into the wind during strong wind conditions. Finally, identify what is marking the four corners of the landing zone.
Great. So that's the first couple chapters of what fire departments will see, what we'll talk about and go over. I think it's important. I always try to talk about a lot of it is some common sense, but to bring up all of these things, there's probably a story I could tell. If you look on the list, whether it's the wires or towers, structures, the traffic, you know, I've seen in this photo, you see the landing officer giving the signal safe to land. They've blocked the grid road off behind there, but I've seen RCMP vehicles drive around that through the ditch and come up as close as they can to an accident and that sort of thing. So it's important to have discussion about the hazard. Sure, debris is another big item that I usually talk about. I'd get into a lot more if landing zone specific type of discussion. Here's the signals: clear land, take an E once the helicopter's close, and then abort a landing is the signals that are universally used. Here's an interesting shot of the night vision goggles. So STARS has a lot of ex-military pilots who used the night vision goggles in military service, and they figured after a couple years, STARS thinking, why can we not have, as long as we're licensed to have them by the federal government? Night vision goggles are actually a controlled substance, just like morphine or fentanyl. You've heard those terms. As a paramedic, I am licensed and able to provide those restricted medications like fentanyl or morphine. So they're locked up in a room and also safe. They're double locked at the hangar. Same as night vision goggles. We're able to do our night calls that we have safer this way, and we're able to do more of them of the night vision that the pilots allowed to have now federally. So STARS brought that in. Orange is the helicopter medevac service in Ontario, and they heard about that and they said, well, how did you work that out with the federal government? Can we get your documents on, because we think we could do that too. So now Orange out there is doing it as well. Here's a shot. I believe this photo was Whitecap, Dakota First Nations on a training, winter training thing that the pilots, every January, February, all the pilots have to do several landings with the night vision goggles that are not actual calls we're going on. So this is a training exercise that we're doing. So we're able to take a photo of this one. Just got one more quick video here that highlights some equipment, if I can get it to go.
I don't remember anything about that day.
Star 1 Center, you're on pilot for a scene call.
About a mile from my home, I was T-boned from somebody that didn't stop at a stop sign.
They're saying that she was hypotensive and hypoxic.
Her injury was just catastrophic. I mean, one of her ribs had actually lacerated her heart.
They're calling it a level 1 trauma, and they are using their blood that we have on board the aircraft as well.
She didn't have time. She didn't have the golden hour. Her injury, I mean, she should have died from it. She really should. But the thing that kept her going was the blood.
Blood on board was fairly new at that time. Here's somebody that clearly needed it. Her blood pressure is really low, heart rate's really fast. All the classic signs of hemorrhagic shock.
She only had a limited amount of time to get it fixed or she was going to die.
We got blood into her, we managed her airway, breathing, and circulation. Communicated with the receiving team, which is really important. We got to use all of our tools, all of our skills, and it made a difference.
What did you say this was again? Those are pressure bags, so IV pressure bags. They would have used that for you. They did.
I was amazed that she actually came to see us. That's always a, because you kind of look up what her call was and you're like, oh my God, like you are an absolute walking, talking miracle, you are.
I wanted to thank the people that saved my life because I have 3 kids and I wouldn't be here today to see my kids graduate.
She's a very good example of the time, tools, talent played a part in her ultimate recovery. The fact that EMS called us right away, the fact that we carry blood on board, the fact that we have a video laryngoscope, the fact that we have the interosseous kit on board, the fact he was able to ultrasound her heart and then pinpoint the problem.
I had no idea of the equipment that was available, the technology that was available to STARS. I think they pulled out all the stops for me to save my life. I think they used almost every piece of equipment in there.
It's great that we have a donor base that believes in what we're doing, and because everything that we do is really expensive, and having a donor base that believes in our mission, it's great to be part of that.
I wouldn't be here today if they didn't donate. And if anybody's thinking that it'll never happen to them, they don't know, because I didn't ever think it would happen to me.
So that's one of our VIPs, our very important patients that we refer to often. Every now and again, we have people come back to the hangar that want to meet or kind of see the helicopter and go through, everything well, and they like to touch base, which is nice. So this next shot is we have several departments around the province that want to support STARS. And in doing that, some of them have a little trailer with jet fuel in it for our helicopters, and so they'll pull it out in the event of, I think Turtleford's a good example. If we're up that far, they'll call us. They know it's a fair trek from Saskatoon. They'll call us mid, say, we're going out to this call. Do you want us to bring that fuel for you? And those guys will fuel up the helicopter, and I've never seen them do it because I'm dealing with somebody who's very sick and injured. I get back in and the pilots say, oh yeah, no, they pulled right up beside the helicopter after we shut down and they refueled us. So that's a nice relationships we have there. So this is the new helicopter I spoke of, the Airbus H-145, fully fitted out, fully kitted out with our gear for us to operate. They're $13 million a pop. And they travel about 275 kilometers an hour with a range of 550 and such. So we can carry 2 patients at a time, but they're pretty small in the back. To do 2 patients at one time, we are limited to what we can provide for those patients. So I have yet to carry 2 patients in the back of one of these helicopters. This is a nice little, it takes about 4 minutes to, if I can get it to go.
Star 9 Link Center, pre-alert for scene call 30 nautical miles from the city.
Roger, stand by weather check, please.
Link Center copy, standing by for weather.
Link Center, Star
9, the weather is looking good. We accept the mission.
Stars AMC? Yeah, copy that. Standing by for dispatch tones. We're dispatched to an MBC.
Star 9, this is Link Center. You're dispatched for a scene call 30 nautical miles southwest of the city. Patient weight 80 kilograms.
So that's a little bit about stars in general. I touched on some of the site registration stuff, some of the points that the site registration people like to hit on are the idea behind it is emergency preparedness. They talk about the sophisticated mapping system that's utilized when you do a site. The transport physician is able to be contacted 24/7, and they're able to know what's nearest for first responders. And so those are some really highlighted points at site registration. But I'll just open it up for any questions or comments.
Yeah, thanks so much, Cary. We were experiencing a little bit of lag in the interwide web there, but
okay.
Most of it came through really pretty good and stuff. So thank you to Sundee as well. She's an advisor with the association, and she was posting links the whole time in the chat function on Zoom. So anyone that's looking for that could access that right now. Cary, I was just looking at our questions that we got coming in here. We got a few minutes to get through some of those. And can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so here's someone that posted in here, and I just want to read this out. I think this is more of a statement than a question, but it's neat. And they say, I just wanted to say thanks to everyone at STARS for all the hard work and dedication. Last year, you saved my brother from a deadly respiratory virus called hantavirus. If it's not for your team, he would not be here today. From the bottom of my heart, thank you, everyone at STARS Air Ambulance. So, what a wonderful testimonial that we even just had coming in here.
Right, for sure.
So I have, here's another question. What's the weight capacity to carry people? Do they only pick up the patient?
Right, great question. So because helicopters are inherently, it's a lot of parts, weight is an issue. So we try to only take the patient every time. I have done trips where it's a child that's involved, and I have taken the mother or the father on those trips. Due to very strict legality issues, Transport Canada requires certain things. So for somebody to come with us, like that, a family member, our pilots have to do a briefing with that person. So that has happened. If it's an adult, I haven't transported a family member with an adult patient yet. As far as the weight, with our new H145 that you can see here, we're at a 300-pound weight limit with this right now. And we're just slowly moving into transitioning out of the older helicopters into these new ones. Once every base has got these new helicopters, the stretch there are actually rated for a bit higher than that. We need everybody functioning at the same level first before we can increase that limit. So I think right now our max is at 300 pounds.
Great. Thanks. Here's another question. Will STARS be doing the Ride the Hangar this year?
Good one. So there's a virtual Ride the Hangar that I saw was posted. I think it was on one of the social media platforms that they were putting out. So it's kind of a cool thing. But I know there are there's a lot of interest in that Ride the Hangar. It's quite the gathering, quite the party. So I'm sure if you were to Facebook that or Twitter, something like that, you could find out pretty quick what the plan was for Ride the Hangar this year.
Great. Cary, I want to tie two questions together here, and maybe it could just be answered in one period. I have two questions. One of them is, what's the typical experience of your pilots? And the other one is, STARS operates 24 hours, and that's question mark. Do they travel in bad weather conditions? Is STARS ever grounded?
Yeah, really good question. So I'll address the pilots first. So STARS is an area that, whether you're a paramedic or nurse or pilot, it's a nice organization to work for and with because they look at safety as the number one importance. And we are out there to help somebody in the time of need. So that draws a certain type of person, right? We have ex-military pilots. We have Canadian military. We have ex-Colombian military pilots. We have ex-forestry work, oil and gas industry pilots. So variety at the Saskatoon base, it's about 50-50 for military and civilian pilots. They all come with, there's a hiring for a pilot. I believe STARS gets quite a large number of people wanting to fly STARS, simply because of the environment that we work in and the fact that helicopter pilots are used to going away for their job for weeks, months on end and not seeing their family. Now these STARS helicopter pilots, they're living at home with their family. They go in and do a 12-hour shift. Sometimes it rolls into 15 hours, but they're at home. They're at home every day. So it's a very sought after job for pilots, for sure. It's out of the norm for a helicopter pilot to be home with your family, living with your family all year round. The weather was a question there.
Yeah.
So we travel, we do operate 24/7, 365. Every time the helicopter leaves the ground, there's 2 pilots, a nurse and paramedic in there. So it's a crew of 4. We do have the option to take the transport physician with us. I didn't highlight that too much. I didn't to that, but we do have on call 24/7 is a physician. And there are 2 things that I'll mention that as critical care providers, nurse, paramedic, we aren't allowed to do technically. And I'll highlight them. One would be a chest tube. So somebody's got a pneumothorax or a hemothorax, which means there's blood or air in the chest cavity in the wrong place. And it's affecting their breathing. Physicians can cut a hole in the chest and put a tube in there and drain that blood or drain the air so that the lung can inflate properly. As nurse and paramedic, we're not allowed to do that procedure. We can take a needle and poke that into the chest and hopefully relieve that, but that's an emergency type of procedure. The chest tube is a temporizing measure that a physician can do. So if we think that might be required at a facility that we're going to, we'll wait an extra 15 to 20 minutes for that physician to get in. Sometimes they're at the university hospital. We have picked them up off the roof University Hospital and the general, and gone out with a physician. The other thing would be a pacemaker wire. We can do an external pacing with our monitors, but we can't do an invasive wire feed down through the vasculature and into the heart, the internal pacing. So that's something that our physicians would have to fly with us for. So I just thought I'd better highlight. And the other thing is the weather. Helicopters are not as good in weather as airplanes are. So we are held to some strict weather requirements. Freezing anything, freezing drizzle, freezing rain, freezing ice fog. What I kind of tell people is what I hear from the pilots. If it has the word freezing in it, we have to go around it, or we don't fly it. So that's the weather aspect.
Thanks. And I think the last piece of that was, were they ever, like, do you get grounded quite often, or does that happen very, very often that you'll actually be called out, do a weather check, and not able to attend?
So those shoulder seasons, like November and March, would be lower flying seasons. I know I've gone into a couple shifts in those November or March areas, and the pilots, walking into the base, the pilot said, "We're not going anywhere tonight. We're not going anywhere today." The freezing aspect, yeah, drizzle, right. Freezing fog, that sort of thing. So there are sometimes a 12-hour shift where we know we're not flying because of the weather. Some of that stuff moves through. So every time there's a call, the pilots check the most recent weather reports and they base their decision. They are ultimately, when we get a call, they actually don't know what the call is. The medical staff, nurse, paramedic get the call, get the information. We decide if we're warranted. If we say no, the Link Center actually calls the transport physician and say, "Hey, your nurse paramedic team just said no to this. Do you want to override that decision?" So we have the ability to pull the trigger on that. But ultimately, the pilots say we can. So the pilots are just checking weather. They make a call based solely on weather. Is it safe to fly the helicopter? Yes or no? And they decide we'll accept or we'll decline.
It's wonderful. I think that's very typical of on construction sites as well. And there's people making calls, adverse weather, things like that. And we deal with that in construction as well. Cary, I just want to close up the presentation. Sorry that we weren't able to get to all the question and answers. I know I realize there's probably a lot of questions out there that could, specifics and interesting things about STARS. But I do want to thank you, Cary, for being with us today. It's very much appreciated. The impact that STARS makes in our communities is very apparent, especially through testimonies like we heard here, and through those people that potentially they would not be here today if it wasn't for the swift and prompt service you were able to provide at STARS. Being patient focused, the technology and innovation that STARS is coming up with, and the value to the remote communities and sites, work sites and construction sites that you guys provide is invaluable. It's world-class service that I'm sure there's a lot of locations in a lot of countries and a lot of places in the world that this would be a pipe dream for them, and it's a reality for us. So again, Cary, thank you for being with us today.
Agreed. Yes, you're welcome. You're more than welcome. And maybe this is something you want to set up and do in 6 months or a year from now. I would love to join again and talk about maybe the new things that we're doing in STARS by then. That would be great.
Great. So just in closing, I'd like to encourage everyone to support STARS via the lottery and any other avenues that you have for fundraising, and that being a nonprofit. I'm sure those donations are what really drives the innovation and the furthering of your objectives within this province. So, and your life-saving work is much appreciated. So I'd like to close the webinar with that, and I'd like to wish everyone a wonderful day.